Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's take a look at some altcoins. And you know what that means. First, starting with the Bitcoin chart, which most importantly has started to maybe think about possibly, hopefully, bouncing off resistance and breaking out finally. And this is really what alts need. Alts need permission to run. Typically, you see that either when BTC is bullish but not too bullish, it can't suck all the oxygen out of the room, which is what we may see initially, or if BTC is consolidating in a bullish fashion. It wasn't really bullish in the way it was moving. It was angrily selling off over and over again. So I think alts especially have had a hard time with that. We have held at the cloud. We've held at the Kijun. We started printing a bunch of bearish chart patterns here last month that I've talked about a lot. Tried to break down and didn't a couple times. So here we are. I like that we're making a higher high here. I like that the cup and handle stuff is intact. I like that the flag is intact. I like that funding is still flat. I like that everything that we've talked about for seasonality is playing out. It's just hard to be bearish here. Could it be a fake out breakout? Absolutely. And you can say that every time for any breakout on anything in time memoriam. That's always a possibility. But if I had a choice, or something looked like this versus something that was selling off into the cloud or below the cloud, it would be this all day. Target is based on Fibonacci extensions, taking the high, taking the low, using the depth of the pattern, giving you a range that says, hey, here's an idea where we may try to reach. There's a yearly pivot at 150. I can't imagine we get there and fly straight through 150. That's a pretty big psychological level as well, I think, as is 120. But beyond July, August, September, typically not great. So if anything, it's possible we break out, get super happy, get super excited and euphoric, and then August, September's trash, and then we'd finally take off for real in Q4. Perfectly reasonable. We also have the COT data down here on the CME still favoring bullish positioning. We have the alternative backtested AI cloud on BTC ready to turn bullish again. This would be a bullish TK recross with price above cloud, a bullish Kumo twist, retwist with price above cloud. So all that is bullish. Can this be wrong? Was it wrong back here? It was wrong a little bit back here eventually, right? But ultimately, as long as this is above the cloud, if it's above support, that's where you want to be. If we get below support and we have resistance above us, then it's a different story, which is why it was a different story for me a couple weeks ago. So, hey, such is life in the chop. But if we can maintain these highs and hold these highs, we should easily see bullish continuation here. As for alts, what do you do with ETH? You know, ETH is still above the cloud. So good things happen above the cloud. We all know that. That's why we watch the cloud. Chart pattern wise, it's been a mess. It's been very difficult to gauge what's going on here because you haven't really had a clean setup, at least for me, on a multi-day process. Maybe you have a left shoulder, maybe you have a price extreme, didn't really get a right shoulder. Yes, you had the edge to edge. That worked out perfectly. A lot of people took that trade. Excellent. Still, though, this picture not as clean as it was back here, just in my head, and certainly not as clean as it was back here. So if we're looking at the past two Q4s, Q4 2023 and 2024, those setups were a lot cleaner than this. However, we're above the cloud. So, okay, great. Now this chart pattern could be 5 different things. Most of it is bullish. Cup and handle, inverted head and shoulders, and nested inverted head and shoulders. This mess could be a diamond top reversal failure. I don't know, right? But so far, so good. If you measure this a few different ways, we're talking 3,400 and then something between 4 and 5. I just don't think if you're trading this here, you really care about 3,400. Like, yes, there's going to be a profit level there on leverage or something, especially based on the VPVR, but I just wouldn't care about that. ETH has gone from 4,000 to 1,000 effectively. Do you really care about 3,400 from 25? No, you're probably hoping that this at least attempts a new multi-year high, if anything. So it certainly has room to run, and as we'll see relative to everything else that's looked like ETH, that has run, it's reasonable that it does continue beyond the 3,200, 3,500 level. This is ETH on the AI cloud. that was backtested on BTC, not backtested on ETH, just to be clear, but similar style, similar vibes. We may get a bullish TK recross price above cloud here on that. More importantly, the COT data for ETH rarely has ever been this net bullish for commercials. And I think this is another all-time high for commercials. So this is where you want stuff to be. You want BTC to be bullish. You want some sort of relative value trade, potentially. We'll take a look at ETH-BTC. And you certainly want everything else moving around it. If we look at the entire universe of the world in crypto, you've got Coinbase, WGMI, Total 2, and ETH. Coin and WGMI have both broken out. Total 2 and ETH are the laggards here. So it would be a different story if we had a one-to-one correlation with all this stuff and the leaders were turning down. That is not what we're seeing here. The leaders are and have surged much higher. And you can say this is for any reason. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. All I care about is the correlation. I don't care about Circle. I don't care about Robinhood. I don't care about tokenization. None of that matters. This is only about technicals. This is only about correlations. So it is hard for me to think that you're not going to see some sort of attempt for ETH and Total 2 to move higher. This is Total 2 finally back above the cloud. It's been messy and rangy. It's been kind of falling wedgy. And we're going to see that on a lot of the meme coins, especially where they are trying to break out. And alts get this a lot. You see this on Tesla as well, a lot. It has a lot to do with who's trading this. It has a lot to do with the endless sales of alts via emissions, inflation, staking, unlocks. When there's a lack of bid, this stuff just drifts endlessly, right? It just drifts lower, And that's what we saw lately. However, we're back above the cloud. That's where I like to be. Don't quite have a bullish TK cross yet, but I'd rather have this than what we had the other day. You have to believe in something. And if I'm taking a chance on anything, it's when stuff looks like this, when it's finally flipping bullish on trend metrics. Now, this isn't every single alt. We'll take a look at the ones that are, but it's good to see the index flipping. Now, most of this is what? ETH and SOL, right? So that's going to color what's going on here a lot. You also have stable coins, which continue to just quietly mint. And at some point that should act as a bullish divergence. You can see the alligator jaws, this one, top jaws rising, bottom jaws falling. Eventually that's going to attempt to close shut, I would imagine, aka Total 2 moving higher. If we flip gears to alts on Kraken desktop, you can use the link in the description of this video to get yourself an account, get desktop for free. We'll start with the ETH BTC because this again is where you want to be in your head. Relative to BTC, what are we doing? Are we breaking out? Are we trying to break out? Are we pre-breakout? Are we consolidating? Are we just flat out bearish? We're certainly not bearish. We're consolidating. I'd say we're pre-breakout. The cloud is finally trying to flip. So for the first time in over a year, there's a chance that ETH outperforms BTC. It's still slightly early. I would love to see ETH above 26, 2800. But as long as we don't make lower lows here, this is where you have to start to thinking about trading some of this stuff to the long side. Is it a guaranteed slam dunk outperformer against BTC? No. And it's done poorly for a long time. But if I'm going to take a chance on this, this is an area, as was back here, where this just didn't go anywhere. And the get out of Dodge signal back here was a new lower low. So that would be 022 or thereabouts. But until that point, you have to start to think about this if you're trading technicals. And you can see it just on the list today, BTC up 2 3/4, some of this up as much or slightly less. That's not where you want to be. If you're trading an alt, you do not want to be up on the day, but less than BTC. Then what's the point? You want to live in the 5% plus land today. And that has to be consistent. That's the bigger issue. So ETH BTC looks okay. Sol BTC just really not doing much of anything down here. And as far as alts that look good on USD pairs, Say still looks good. This is a nice little flag post breakout and it's above the cloud. Most importantly, above the cloud. Aptos is interesting. I don't know if there's a trade here today, but definitely one to watch because it's had a tight downward consolidation. It isn't quite as drifting in nothingness as some of these charts. Sol not as bad. Sol also very close to a breakout here. I think SWE is probably more drifting in nothingness there. That isn't to say this isn't the stone cold bottom. It's just if I'm taking a shot on any of this stuff, it has to look like it wants to go higher. So yes, ADA is up a bunch today. It's in nothingsville, no man's land, right? Yeah, it's a range low, fine. It's not for me. It's not for me. And the last time this was really bullish was when everything was bullish. Aave's another one. If you're bullish ETH, you certainly like ETH beta, you like ETH memes, you like ETH anything. You like DeFi, you like Maker. The only concern here would be a diamond top, but this again could be like a failed diamond top. That's what you'd be rooting for, but it is above the cloud. Maker is another one still, if it's on this list here, it is. It's above the cloud on the daily. It's really choppy, but trying to move up. Higher time frames, I think, look a little better. But you'll notice it's not below 1,000, where the equivalent of most of these alts are, where they just haven't done anything. So yeah, you can take your scratch off lottery ticket and pick one of these and say, okay, he said BTC's bullish, everything's going to be bullish. Very possible, but there's a good chance that even with BTC bullishness, most of these just underperform. Ripple also at an interesting spot on the daily because it is trying to maybe think about possibly breaking out. I don't like this. A day before it's above the cloud. So let it chop, let it do nothing. We can even put on a diagonal trend line maybe. We can say, okay, like we are almost thinking about maybe trying something here. Maybe. Just feels a little early still, even though that may be correct. Just feels a little early. Tau below, and that's going to be the issue with most of these. They're still kind of just ranging. You could argue low time frame, bottomy chop, reminiscent of an inverted head and shoulders. Sure, I'd accept that. But where are you really going to take a stand? Are you going to lever up on this or something that looks like whiff? Why whiff? Well, it's trying to break out above the cloud. Had a little bit of a pattern there. I think it's one of the better looking charts. I could be way off base here on the memes, but I think it looks pretty good. So most of these, despite the bounce today, are still really floating in no man's land. Say we talked about looks good. Algo, no man's land below. Monero, not something I'd trade. Dot, no man's land. Ondo, no man's land. Curve, no man's land. Syrup, that train has left the station many moons ago. Atom, no man's land. Cass, no man's land. Aptos, talked about trying to break out, maybe. Tia, to me, is just the strongest of avoids. This one's easily one of the weakest in the market. Could be the stone cold bottom. Stone cold bottom. People yell at me in the comments about mumbling. Sorry, it's just me. If we look at the bottoms that have attempted, none of them have held. So yeah, this could be the one, but you could have said that at any point here. I don't know. It's just, it's not for me. It's not worth it. Near, no man's land. Tron moves differently than the rest of the market. Still looks fine above the cloud. Doesn't tend to outperform on the upside though. So I'd keep that in mind. Render, no man's land. Kaido, not enough data. FET, ranging, maybe another one to watch here. Really nothing to say. You could probably argue a decent case for a low time frame. Inverted head and shoulders, that's pretty clean. Maybe something worth thinking about on the 6 hour there. And that's maybe my own fault for not looking at this stuff on a lower time frame and just paying attention to the daily. A lot of people don't like the cloud that I use because they say it's too lagging, it's too late. I just like confirmations. So there's a link on the 6 hour. You know, I don't hate that. I don't hate that if you're looking for something. So but you need some rationale. Ondo on the 6 hour. So you could line these up, look at them on a lower time frame, and say, okay, there's a pattern that's building here. It looks pretty good. There's a trend metric that looks pretty good with a breakout. At least there's some justification. Whereas on a lot of this stuff, there's just nothing, really. It's just sort of a guess. ENA on the daily, free floating, nonsense. Maker, we talked about. Stacks, just free floating. But again, you can see it on the daily. There's something trying to happen here on low time frames on the 6 hour. Ray, I got nothing. Just free floating. Pith, free floating. Rune, free floating. Axel, free floating. HNT, nothing. So you could shoot your shot on some of these based on the 6 hour. You could stick to strength in ETH, in Say, Aave, Maker. But I think you really got to be careful going way down the list where there's really no justification on technicals. For the memes, Doge is certainly in the no man's land camp. On the daily, on the 6 hour, I don't personally see anything here. Maybe you could argue an inverted head and shoulders, but like if you have to think about it, if you have to force it, it really doesn't feel like that's where you want to live to me. Now, maybe you're arguing on some high time frame that this has to bounce because it always does. I don't know. Again, that's tough. That's tough to say. WIF I mentioned, again, I just like it because of its position relative to the cloud. Looks pretty pre-breakout to me. Pepe in a similar vibe, maybe something to watch on lower time frames, but you certainly want little King's Castle inverted head and shoulders versus ascending triangle. You certainly want higher highs. You want a breakout above this low time frame range to be sure. Popcat looks very similar. Daily, basically identical to Pepe. No real differences there. Bonk, very similar to those two. Mog, trying to get above the cloud, low time frame, inverted head and shoulders. And as fast as I'm going in this video, I mean, this is what I do every day. I just flip through these charts. What is there anything? Is there anything? Is there anything? Like, that's what I'm constantly asking. And if there isn't anything, then it doesn't make sense. Why bother? But, you know, maybe you could argue something like this, trying to break out, right? But it's above the cloud, and that's good enough for me. Trump is a massive avoid for me. Shib, also just kind of in no man's land. Floki, no man's land. So I like a select few on the layer ones, a select few on the memes. Don't hate the price position for a lot of this stuff. And on the BTC pairs, I don't really remember much of anything going on here. Collectively, I still like Maker, how that looks. SNX, no. Again, this is the issue. Everything is just kind of free floating. And this is basically Bitcoin dominance, right? This is what we're looking at. ETH definitely looks the best in a pre-breakout stance relative to the rest of the alts. And lastly, let's just check out Sol ETH. Had a decent low time frame set up there and then just kind of puked lower. It's going to be interesting if Sol catches a bid eventually relative to ETH based on ETFs or treasuries or who knows what, right? But alts finally starting to look better collectively. Finally, you're getting some entries here and you're not just getting blind bear trends all over the place, especially relative to BTC. That's all I got for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.